Good evening, Rich Bissell here with us to talk about mentoring. How are you doing, Rich?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. I'm excited to hear a little bit about what you have to say. And I wanted to start off discussing a mentor that influenced you in your career.
So I've been lucky enough to have a whole series of mentors over the course of my education and my career. And of course, the ones that strike me as being most important are the ones that bridge between the education and the career. So for
Mhm.
instance, I had a dissertation advisor in graduate school who, in fact, I had a panel of three, but one of them in particular had a mentoring view. And it's different from having an advisor, because a mentor for me is a person who actually wants to get to know you, who wanted to get to know me and anticipate where I was thinking. And so our conversations became very easy. It wasn't my pressing questions. So he was a fellow named Scott Thompson, and he actually took me through my dissertation in 3 or 4 different versions, which was an incredible exercise. And after I finished up my degree, we actually became professional colleagues, and not in the same institution, but in the way our careers were going differently, we stayed in very close touch and found that that shift, that our relationship was built not just upon a specific stage, but rather across time as well.
Do you think that he led that mentoring relationship, or was it something that you were pursuing?
I think it was mutual, and it's very important in mentoring. Now, the signals go both ways. So, for instance, I knew that Scott wanted to mentor me when he gave me his home. In other words, I could reach him anytime.
Mhm.
And that is so different than what happens today. For instance, very commonly people think they're finding mentors, say by going through a LinkedIn process
Mhm.
or having networking exercises that go on. But those are really far closer to acquaintances or people that may respond to something specific. To have that broader relationship that takes the whole person into account.
Mhm.
So with Scott, I had a relationship that was academic, it was professional career-wise, and it was personal. And I really appreciated that because it's very easy in the course of going through school and in career of becoming so obsessed with a specific stage of life that you kind of forget perspective.
I think that's really good advice. I think a lot of people go to networking events and they're collecting these acquaintances instead of developing a deeper relationship. So what tips do you have for young people like me in making that relationship a bit deeper?
Um, I've thought about that some, and I thought about what my habits were that caused me, even before in undergraduate and so forth, was that I'll just say that I tended to pick professors um, who I tended to pick professors over the instead of the topics for the most part when I was
Mhm.
going through school, because I learned so much from being able to work with a professor outside of class as much as inside. In fact, maybe more. And so I've always been kind of um, a habitué of office hours and more informal context, going out for coffee and
Mhm.
that sort of. But that carries over into a career because I found mentors in the workplace as well, in the sense that I really had a view that I didn't want to work for a jerk. And if you take that in a positive direction, then I'm looking for people who, in fact, are good people I want to work with, in addition to being smart and capable and effective and all that sort of thing.
Mhm. Um, can you give an example of an impactful mentor relationship where you were the mentor?
Well, yes, it's very interesting you asked that because the I always felt that I did a lot of teaching along the way, I must
Mhm.
say, at the tertiary level. And I was never a full-time faculty member, which is interesting. I always did adjunct or as a visiting professor kind of thing. And it got such a reward out of finding students who wanted to be mentored, and that I could actually help them, not just as somebody standing up there giving a lecture, but actually getting to know them. Oddly enough, the person I mentioned who was my mentor coming out of graduate school and into my first career stages, I ended up being his mentor
Oh.
because he wanted to move into, I moved to Washington and developed a career in government and think tanks and so forth in Washington. And at a certain point, he wanted to expand out of university life. And so I became, I mean, we very smoothly kind of switched roles
Hmm.
and moved on over a period of years.
Well, that's really interesting. I think a theme that I have seen time and time again doing these interviews, this is only my third interview, but just a mentoring relationship being a very fluid process. And I think you definitely touched on that and something to keep in mind.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, it's fluid if in fact the essence of the mentoring relationship is if you're interested in the other person as a person,
Hmm.
as well as just a a person who's going to hold a job or make money or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that interest in the other person, as we all change over life, it necessarily means that for it to continue, in fact, it will necessarily go back and forth.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have for today, Rich. But thank
Okay.
you for speaking with me and have a great day.
Well, it's my pleasure. I look forward to talking further with anyone.
Yes. Bye.